The landscape is changing, and it is changing globally and locally. Today we're going to be talking about global affairs and try to make an estimate on how are things explained, how things are envisioned, and how things are developing. Today we have the distinct pleasure to have with us Mr. Dimitrios Apokis, who's an expert in international affairs with a great experience over the Atlantic in the United States, and he's also a journalist with the National Broadcasting Corporation, ERT, of Greece. My name is Dr. Marios Eftimiopoulos, and I'm the host of Prime Analysis. Mr. Apokis, dear Dimitris, thank you very much for being today with us with this web series of Prime Analysis.
Glad to be here, my friend Marios. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to a great discussion.
Thank you very much, dear Dimitris, and I hope we have this vivid discussion on the attempt to basically understand and comprehend and give to our audiences a small overview of what is happening around the world or what is to happen around the world. So let me start with a great experience that you have not only in the National Broadcasting Corporation, but also through your international experience coming from Greece to the world. We've seen a lot of changes in the latest years with regards to the geostrategic landscape. We have seen a lot of changes with regards to European politics, and we've seen a lot of changes with regards to the periphery. I'm wondering if you can explain to us a bit the Greek situation on Greece's positions in the world. Where do we stand?
As you correctly said, the landscaping is changing rapidly. Basically, what is happening is that the old manual, all of us knew after World War II, is not in existence anymore. Everything changed. The invasion of Russia in Ukraine gave a strong push to this change. Many things that were working in the background came in the forefront of geopolitics and international economy. Everything it's a whole new game, you can say. So in this whole new game, Greece is trying hard to position itself in the new landscape. Of course, Greece is a member of the European Union. That is a blessing and also sometimes a problem on national interest, because there are a lot of interests with big countries in the European Union, and that is in some cases creates some problems for Greece. But in any case, Greece has a very strong relationship that was strengthened the last few years with the United States. Greece made some correct moves, I can say, in the periphery of our country here in Greece, with important countries of the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East. But at the same time, because of these rapid changes, because things change almost every day now, you cannot be certain that all these things will work at the end. We cannot be sure what will happen the day after tomorrow. And the problem for countries like Greece is that they have to constant be ready for new strategy. And as I see it, as an analyst of international relations, the problem that Greece has, it doesn't have a concrete strategy on how to position itself in the new landscape, because they don't understand here that they have to formulate a national strategy based on national interest, something that is the new basic framework in the geopolitical environment of today.
I mean, you have put a lot of things into the table, and thank you very much for this. And I pin down, if you want, a few things that we can discuss. I want to take it back to multilateralism. Multilateralism is a common word now in international affairs that basically speaks about different actors and the opportunity for different actors to be involved in a variety of cases, diplomatic cases, military cases, even increase the business and trade. We've seen lately Greece being a very good ally, as you said, not only with Europe or within the European spectrum, that it is a member of the European Union, and at the same time it has played its cards with the United States and has played its cards with trilateral and quadruple alliances and international alliances, namely with the Gulf, the Middle East, and above this, also with India in the latest achievements. I would like to concentrate a bit on how multilateralism is established, considering the fact that you just said that we're still lacking a concrete national strategy with regards to our own national interests when they're presented abroad. Where do you see the opportunities, and where do you see the challenges, for that matter?
First of all, you mentioned multilateralism. That's the new game. We have to accept that. At the same time, we see that the Western world, the West, faces serious problems, economic problems in the society, problems in policy, and basically the biggest of all problems in leadership. That includes the United States.
Right.
The leader of the Western world, the United States of America, for many, many years now, has political problems, a country that is divided politically, and at the same time, lack of strong leaders at the national level and at the international level, because we speak about the United States of America. That seems to me is going to continue, unfortunately, in the next few years. The prospect of, for example, having President Biden and former President Trump face off in 2024 creates a lot of headaches for many people around the world and inside the United States. In this environment, we see the rise of the global south, meaning countries in the south, from Brazil to India, that have a strong position at the international level and try to play a clever game between the West and the other side, which we can say with almost certainty that right now we have China, Russia, some other countries that support them, Iran is back in the game. So this creates a multilateral world, but at the same time, a multilateral world that is unpredictable every day, because all these countries I mentioned, like Indonesia, India, Brazil, countries in Africa, you cannot be certain on big issues when they arise, which path will follow, towards the West or towards the other side. In this environment, Greece, as a small country in a very crucial and difficult neighborhood and periphery, has a lot of headaches, a lot of things to deal with. That's the reason I mentioned that you have, if you are a country like Greece in this environment, you must have a core national strategy for the international level, and be clear about your national interests. And many people don't like this, but it's not an absolute that you can follow all the time, for example, the policies of the European Union, something we do up until now. And sometimes this creates problems for us, and we avoid to see, for example, that other countries inside the European Union, members of the European Union, have a policy based on their national interests, and they don't follow Brussels all the time.
Right.
I think it's time for Greece. Actually, the time has passed, and Greece has to follow the same path in
Right.
this new world.
I completely understand the changes that are happening and the actors are needed with regards to negotiations, to strategic points of view, and so on. And we here at Strategy International are of the opinion that we do need to get more engagement and therefore more dialogue within the spectrum of different cultures and civilizations. But let me go a bit in the bilateral attempt to clarify how Greece sees the European Union, and then I will go to the rest. We'll follow with the United States and then with Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. But within the spectrum of that multilateralism that you have explained very well, you mentioned at some point in the beginning that the leader is the United States, and at the same time you questioned
Of the
also
West, of the
for the
West
West,
world.
yes, of course, for the West, and for the Western world, the element of leadership, you put a question mark with regards to leadership. Surely we can understand, however, that Greece is a member of the EU. It's one of the eldest members. At the same time, Greece, with its own mythology in Europa, gave the name and the euro currency as well as a name which includes also the Greek language with this, among others, culture and civilization, etc., etc. But the question is, are we more European? Are we more Euro-Atlantic? Or are we more Atlanticist by nature or by geographic proximity and location?
That's the big question, and a question that we face in all our history, the modern history at least. As you mentioned, Greece is a member of the European Union, at the core of the European Union, the Eurozone, because this is also important for people to know how the European Union works. And at the same time is a member of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which connects Greece closely with Washington, because the United States is NATO. We must not have any doubts that without the United States, NATO does not exist. This dichotomy creates a lot of headaches for Greece, you can say. Of course, in this new era we are living now, and we are getting deeper and deeper in this new framework in international relations and geopolitics. After the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, geopolitically, Europe doesn't exist, just follows the United States.
Yes.
In my opinion, this gives Greece an opportunity to promote more strongly its national interests and formulate a policy that has at its core the national interest of Greece, which is an interest that follows closely the strategic targets that the West has and must have. For example, what is happening with Turkey, and it's another chapter we can discuss, proves to the West, in my opinion, or should prove to the West, must prove to the West, that Greece is in the Eastern Mediterranean, this crucial strategic part of the world, is the absolute Western partner.
Right.
And this must make Greece to take advantage of that fact and speak more plainly with the allies, and specifically with Washington. We have to understand that. If we don't understand that, down the road, I think we will have serious problems.
But certainly, I would like to challenge you a bit, because, I mean, in the NATO framework, you remember this policy of NATO, we are NATO. I mean, obviously, there is an agreement, a consensus, which is a policy of NATO. So I believe that for the sakes of NATO's policy, we all agree, as in 31 members altogether now, about NATO. So I still believe, on a personal basis, if I can say this, that we are NATO. Therefore, at a NATO level, Greece is an equal member with the rest of the countries, especially with the amounts that are also provided, where Greece meets its contribution towards the joint NATO military budget and civilian budget, and it has been doing so continuously, even within the economic crisis that Greece had passed. With regards to the EU, at the same time, what I take from your discussion is that you would like to have more national interest becoming part of the European, if you want, agenda, considering that Greece is in the borderline along with Cyprus and along with Bulgaria in this case as being the first entrances in the European Union. And that I can also concur in the sense that we always need to find out what is happening in the borderline, either it is in the Northern Europe, Central Europe, or South and Southeast Europe itself. So let me just move to the United States. I know that you've been having a large experience, 20 plus years. You've been in Washington. I would like you to tell us if you think about your experiences in the United States in the different capacities that you've had. But I also would like to concentrate a bit because throughout this discussion that we've been having, you are very much a proponent of the bilateral relationship between Greece and the United States, and I can understand why. In a changing landscape, in a changing strategy, there's opportunity for both countries. So, how do you envision throughout your professional experiences, through your life experiences in the United States, the sequence of the development of the bilateral relationship between Greece and the United States?
Of course, since I lived almost half of my life in the US, my children were born there. I studied there. I consider the United States and specifically Washington my second home country. I never kept it secret. But at the same time, I'm a Greek. I always be a Greek. Greece is my birthplace and my country. As a strong proponent of the bilateral relationship between the United States and Greece, I have to say this. I want, and specifically in this new era, this new geopolitical environment, a different bilateral relationship between the US and Greece.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean with that, what I mean is that I want Greece to be more challenging partner to the United States, not in the way that Turkey is challenging the United States. I don't mean that. What I mean is that we have to make Washington understand that we have national interests that are challenged by a so-called ally Turkey, and national interests that are going to be difficult to promote and sustain in this new geopolitical environment. And Washington has to understand that. And in order to understand that, two things must happen. First thing, to formulate a national security strategy in Greece based on national interest. Second thing is that when we formulate this strategy, we have to be very honest and plain speaking with Washington about this strategy. We cannot always be the good kid on the block with Washington. You mentioned that we fulfill our budgetary obligations in NATO for many, many years, sometimes better than the United States, but that's another story. And at the same time, we buy weapons, sometimes weapons we don't need. If I want to speak plainly, but we have to explain to Washington that, okay, guys, we do our part for decades. We are a trusted ally. We are a Western country in a period that many members of the Western Alliance, even big members, you cannot say that they are so trusted allies like Greece is. And all this has to make some benefits for Greece. And what I mean about benefits, they have to be open and clear about support Greece against threats from allies, specifically Turkey, and they also they have to support Greece. Mean Washington has to support Greece in our periphery here in the Eastern Mediterranean with more concrete moves. Words are okay; they are important, but we buy weaponry from Washington. We support Washington by having a lot of bases. Suda Bay is the best base in the world. No one can challenge that. But we have so many other bases right now in Greece and the military installations from the US. We have yesterday, not tomorrow, yesterday we have to be more demanding towards Washington. Since Europe, I have to say this, since Europe proved to be uh, um, an insignificant geopolitical player, not only today in this difficult new environment, but in the past when the things were much more simple.
Can I ask you something? I've been listening very carefully about what you were saying, and you mentioned weaponry for a couple of times. Surely there we have different collaborations also with the United States. That is knowledge transfer. Also, there is also big investments either ways, and we also have a big Greek American community as well. We're talking now probably fifth generation, sixth generation, and goes on and on and on. So the relationship is strong. The question that comes to my mind is how can somebody create a strategic operational approach? I mean, considering we're going to go to the alliances, the trilateral and quadruple alliances, how can we make a strategic cooperation? And I'll explain what I mean. The United States has a strategic cooperation with Israel, which is the highest of their alliances that they have at this point. And at the same time, it has a strategic collaboration with the United Arab Emirates and also a different strategic collaboration with Saudi Arabia and also the US-UK alliance. And lately, we've been seeing that the United States is attempting to do alliances which are of more global value between India and Australia, AUKUS in this case. The question is, how do we transpire this or transmit this into a more concrete element? And I think this goes back to your strategic concept that we have to envision the global strategic concept itself and speculate elements with regard to geostrategic location and to proximity with regards to national interests, national security, and probably also business and trade. So where do you think we stand onto this aspect?
I'm glad that you mentioned Israel. I'm one of the few people here in Greece that I'm a proponent for many, many years that we have to follow Israel as a model on national security. Some people, when I say that, say, okay, but Israel is Israel, the Jewish community is powerful, even in the US, all over the world. We cannot do that. That's a mistake to say it. We can do that. You mentioned the Greek American community. The problem traditionally with the Greek American community is that I'm not sure how educated they are or on our national issues. Most of them, they see the whole game on the bilateral relationship with Washington from the view of Washington,
Right.
on how they can play the game there. And it's not their mistake. It's the mistake of the parent country, Greece. It's the mistake of Athens traditionally. We have to educate these people, but in order to educate our Greek American community and our communities around the world, because we have power communities in Great Britain, all over the world, you can find Greeks that they have a certain power in their countries. In the countries they live. In order to do that, we have first, you will listen to me to repeat that constantly in all of my answers and during our discussion. We have to formulate a national strategy, a national security strategy, Greek-oriented national security strategy.
And multidisciplinary.
We don't have that. We never had that. And it's time to have that, because in this new polypolar, multipolar world in international relations and geopolitics, if you don't have that, you will have a huge problem.
Right.
And you will face a lot of dangers. So Israel is a model. For example, in our bilateral relationship with Israel, we have a great opportunity when things went south with Turkey and Israel, that we didn't take advantage in full of that window. I'm a strong proponent that we have to strengthen at the highest levels our bilateral relationship and strategic relationship with Israel. I'm a strong proponent, and I think we are many, many years late to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and see more carefully our attitude on international fora when issues about Israel coming up for vote. We made huge mistakes, in my opinion, and in certain points of history about voting or absenting from votes regarding Israel at the United Nations and other international fora. And that comes back again to the need, the absolute need to formulate a national security strategy based on our national interest and based on the national interests.
I will come back to the regional approach because I saw you opened a doorway to the Israeli relations and probably the Greece-Cyprus-Israeli relations. But I will come back. I would like to tweak a bit the discussion and go on the other side. I want to talk a bit Asia, Oceania. In Australia, we also mentioned we have a Greek community there. Melbourne is the second Athens. But not only in Australia, but we have also interests in the Asia region. Now, there is an issue, and that has to do with the current war between Ukraine and Russia, which has, on the one hand, opened a lot of opportunities, but then it has caused also a lot of problems, especially for, or opportunities, we may see one, for our maritime ship owners. And Greece has a very big saying in the maritime and the shipping elements. But it seems that Greece has very good relations with China, practically because of culture and history, also in trade. But then again, it is seen differently from the way that China may see Greece or envision Europe, or Europe may envision China, considering this war with Ukraine and Russia that basically put sides, basically put countries to take sides directly or indirectly, and goes on and on and on. So where do we stand with regards to Asia, maybe South Asia, Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Thailand, and goes on and on? How do you think the development of the relationship between Greece and that part of the world goes?
Two things. You mentioned two very important factors. Ship owners of Greece, the biggest commercial maritime fleet in the world. This is Greece. Second, you mentioned China. The presence of China at the port of Piraeus, one of the most important ports in the world, in my opinion, creates a problem down the road, but at the same time, the problem can become a huge opportunity. And what I mean about that, first from the ship owners. If you have a discussion, an honest discussion, off the record, I can speak as a journalist with ship owners, important ship owners. They don't have a lot of trust of now national political leadership to handle issues. They follow their own game. If you ask them, try to engage them in politics, you will receive an answer that I received many, many times during my years as an international relations professional and as a journalist. We have ships, we do business, they will say to you. And that's a very important answer if
And
you
very
think
clear.
about it.
And very clear.
What they mean with that is that We don't involved. We are not going to get involved with politics because the politicians don't play the game as they should play. For example, if you see some of the decisions that made inside the European Union after the invasion of Russia and Ukraine, they were not so favored for the Greek ship owners. And unfortunately, our leadership support that. They didn't raise concerns, serious concerns about policies. But in any case, we have to take advantage of this strong weapon because it's a strong weapon in the new era of the Greek commercial fleet and the ship owners around the world. On China, as I mentioned, China has a presence in the port of Piraeus. We have a very good relationship with Beijing, as Greece, I mean. But at the same time, I remember when the Secretary Pompeo, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State during the Trump administration visited Greece, he raised a concern openly here in Athens about the presence of China, the cooperation with China about Greece. Mm-hmm. This is something that we will face as a country pretty soon. Probably we will face a dilemma to choose down the future. And that is going to be very tricky. Certainly, I'm a strong believer that we will choose the West. But I believe that this is also an opportunity for Greece to demand, not openly, diplomatically, behind the scenes, to demand certain advantages from Washington and the West in general, because we are a very crucial country in the fight that is coming up between China and the US.
Right.
And we have to play this card in a clever way, but it needs creativity and it needs a national strategy on the international level, something we don't have. I repeat that.
Right.
So it's a very, very tricky situation that can become a huge advantage or can create huge problems.
In the next few minutes, I just want to, we have plenty of world to cover still. We have Africa, Latin America. We also have...
let me also say something about the things you asked me about.
Sure.
Asia.
Sure.
We can play the game there and we can be part of the game there, but we continuously lose opportunities. We can play the game in Indonesia, an important country. We can play the game in Japan and in Vietnam. All over Asia, we can play the game. We can be players on this new game, but we cannot be players by saying all this thing that we listen. You and me, you listen that for many years. The Prime Minister visited Japan. They visit other countries in Asia, and they say we discuss about investment and everything, and nothing happens. In order to be serious and be a serious player with these countries, we have to be there. You have to go there with a concrete strategy and make them understand that you are useful to them. And we have tools to be useful to these countries.
What about...
We are the door for Europe.
Right. What about
geography?
What about Australia? And what about
Australia? Australia, in my opinion, is a huge missed opportunity. We have great Greek American community there. powerful Greek American community, but we did not and we do not cultivate in a clever way this force we have inside Australia. Australia is going to be a huge geostrategic player, geopolitical player in the new environment. And it's going to be a huge mistake from Greece, from the part of Greece, to lose this opportunity and be a player there. Because of the attention and the importance of the United States and our community there, we don't pay a lot of attention to Australia, and we must do that immediately, yesterday.
I mean, while you're speaking, I'm also thinking the national strategy is also applicable in tourism, and not only investments or military affairs or location. I mean, the Greek
Tourism is
government
a
has,
big factor,
right, because
is a big
Greece has been
factor for
investing a lot
Greece,
into tourism. I mean, main
but we
industry.
play a lot of attention to tourism. Every year,
Yes.
when the season starts, the tourism season, we say, okay, we will have many more millions of tourists come to Greece and everything. That's good. It's not enough.
Right.
We have to play the game on other
So we are
sectors.
changing. We're also changing our industry, and not only into tourism, but also other levels of industry. No, because in the meantime, I mentioned also knowledge transfer, innovation, pioneering, creating things from Greece into the world. I mean, this is something that I'm also thinking at several times when I examine
We
Greece
have
and when I
to,
see Greece.
as a country, on all these important countries, Australia, the Asian countries, other countries aside from the United States and the European Union as an entity, we have to start proving to people that we are useful
Right.
to them in order to be useful to us.
And that leads me to India. Lately, we've been seeing a very strong relationship starting with India, probably a relationship that has gone through also the Gulf. So I'm going to take also the United Arab Emirates. We have a strategic relationship with the United Arab Emirates throughout the latest years. It's been blossoming. External trade and investment in either sides has been developing. Massive investments also from the United Arab Emirates into Greece. Where do we stand with that? And where do we stand with India, considering also the geopolitical differences with other regional countries, also in India, but also between Greece and its immediate periphery?
All India, United Arab Emirates are very important countries
Right,
for Greece and for our national interest. But in order to be useful to Greece, the relationship with these countries, we have to be serious.
yes,
We have to put seriousness and actions behind the words. Uh, we go there, we discuss, we sign agreements, but we have to be creative. We have to
right,
give them something in order to give us something. Because in this new geopolitical environment, in this new world, because today is the new world. There are a lot of books, articles, analysis
right.
about the new world order. You remember that after the end of the Cold War. Uh, Unfortunately for all these people, even us, uh, today is the new world order. It was not after the end of the Cold War.
Right.
And this new world order, we have to be creative, we have to be demanding towards our allies, and we have to create a national strategy that is going to give us advantages in order to be players to this new world order. Otherwise, we will be at the side of the. It comes to my mind the great book by Dean Acheson, Present at the Creation, after World War II. If we don't be creative and if we don't formulate a serious national strategy at the international level, we will be absent from the creation.
I want to go to
and that's
two.
it.
I want to go to two questions that will follow up. I know that I'm not going to give credit to considering the location and the population that is involved, including also the geostrategical and the geographical location of the expenditure. But I want to go a bit on Africa and Latin America. They're not, I mean, it's overpopulated, big continent, Africa, many opportunities there. We have had opportunities there, whether it's in Tanzania or Ethiopia or Kenya or South Africa, and at the same time also South America. We from Panama in Central South America, Central American South America, from Panama and Mexico to Colombia, Brazil, and Argentina. Where do we stand there?
Actually, we are absent
Right.
completely as a country, and this is an unfortunate development
But we do have a lot of Greeks
because,
there.
first of all, we have a lot of Greeks there, but look what is going on in this new environment. How important countries like Brazil, like Venezuela, like countries like important countries in the Latin America region, are for the energy crisis
Right.
that the West is facing. We can cultivate relationships there. We can take advantage of the Greek community there.
Yes.
Probably it's not so big a community like Australia or the United States or in European countries, but they are important people there, and we should take advantage of that. On Africa, I think Africa is going to be the most important continent in this new environment because of energy, because of natural resources, because of very useful and extremely important minerals for the new technologies. And it pains me a lot to say that, but look, where is Turkey in Africa? Based in Somalia, an island that controlled by Turkey in the Red Sea. No one pays attention to what is going on in Sudan, but Turkey is there. They rent an island for 99 years, a very strategic island in the Red Sea. We have to get serious with Africa. We have to cultivate also relationships there. Our foreign minister made a lot of visits in the Africa regions, but visits are not enough. We have to formulate a strategy
For this
for
as well.
Africa. Not only Greece, but as Greeks, we care a lot about our country. But not only Greece, the West in
Right.
general, because China is there for many, many years. They have a strategy. Russia is there. And I think the West in general is playing catch up
Right.
in Africa.
Yeah, the African continent has been a colonial and post-colonial environment in many years for many countries. But I do know that we have Greeks in Ghana, in Tanzania, in different places. But
I
again,
remember I remember a front page, a cover from The Economist many, many years ago, having camels with Chinese walking in the
yes,
desert in Africa.
yeah, but it was the biggest example is Senegal, the investments of China into
Yes.
Senegal, which caused also a lot of problems, and also the so-called ghost cities that they were built there by the
Mhm.
Chinese to do that. But it's a subject by itself. So let me just handle in a last twin question. I merge it into one. Regional alliances, um, Greece, Cyprus, Israel, Greece, Cyprus, UAE, um, and Greece, Cyprus
Egypt.
bilateral relations. Where do we stand there?
Let's start from the last one, the bilateral relationship with Cyprus. Uh, I'm very disappointed in the last with the late developments. We had the visit by Secretary Blinken, Anthony Blinken,
Hmm.
the US Secretary of State in Turkey and then in Greece. Here in Greece, during the visit, we didn't listen at all the word Cyprus or the Cyprus invasion by Turkey. That's an unfortunate incident. We had this development by supporting Turkey to the naval organization, and Turkey supporting, let's say, us to the UN for a seat at the the UN Security Council, which is a ridiculous development and a very dangerous development. I don't see a very strong strategic relationship right now between Cyprus and Greece. This is something very provocative to say,
Yeah, it is.
but this is something I believe because I think we forget what is going on in Cyprus. I think we forget how strategic Cyprus is in this new geopolitical game.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure that we are going on the same step
In terms of
between
alliances,
Athens and Nicosia.
right? In terms of alliances also.
In terms of alliances, we have a very good base with this trilateral plus one
Right, right, right.
in our region, in our periphery. But we have to cultivate that much more and be much more serious and promote that. For example, these relationships and agreements we have on the trilateral with Israel, both countries, they are on a very good level, but they stay there for many years. I don't think that we made many strives to promote to the next level these agreements and this cooperation, and we have to do that immediately because otherwise we face the danger to lose the momentum. The Israelis, for example, are very practical people. I don't want to say who said to me that, but a very important person from Israel told me not today, 2 years before today, that it's absolutely essential the flirt to become love. He used this.
What about Egypt in that matter? I mean, I'm taking a bit more
Egypt,
of your time, but
Egypt also is another very crucial country for developments, not only in our periphery, but in general in this new geopolitical game. And we have a very good base with Egypt because when President Sisi assumed its duties as the president of the country, at the time, Prime Minister Samaras was the first European and Western leader that supported, with a concrete support, President Sisi of Egypt.
yes,
And at the time, he faced a lot of criticism inside the European Union and inside the Western world. But Samaras proved right to support Sisi. We have to continue that, and we have to support Egypt. Egypt right now is in a very difficult position, faces a lot of difficulties, and we have to prove that we are a very good ally, because down the road it's going to be very useful for the national interest of Greece to support Egypt. But all these countries, Egypt, Israel, the countries in the Gulf, the countries in Africa, they have to see a serious Greece with a
right,
serious strategy, with a framework that proves to them that we are useful and we can be supportive to them. They have to gain something from a strong relationship with us, and we have to gain something from them.
right,
Words are not enough.
right. So a Hellenic centric understanding of the world, dear Dimitris, Mr. Apokis. Thank you very much for taking the time. I know your time is crucial to explain to us your opinions in your strategic view, considering both your experiences both in the National Broadcasting Corporation, ERT, but also as an expert in international affairs and many years in the United States as a representative.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a great pleasure because, believe it or not, here in Greece, many of us, we don't have an opportunity to speak in international fora like this one. I love to talk geopolitics in English. I missed that.
Absolutely. That's the
so
idea.
It was a great pleasure for me.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for being with us at Prime Analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching Strategy International's Prime Analysis. Please share, like, follow, and subscribe to our social media and YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Marios Efthymiopoulos, and I'm the host of Prime Analysis. And remember, impact makes a difference.